Hey there, welcome to the Cafe Genius Impresarios audio program. I am your host, Dan Hugo. Today we are recording at 11:30 in the morning on this Friday, September 27, 2024. Still an excessive heat warning, Freudian slip, definitely warming. Today's high is supposed to be around close to 100. I think it's some reporting of 96 degrees in my neck of the woods at the moment. It must be a warm autumn ahead. Interesting times. And so on this very warm day, we are going to dovetail off on last week's episode of Cafe Genius Impresarios, where we talked about the fact that chaos is opportunity by some measure. This week's episode, plenty of opportunity. And of course, we are speaking of the greater Vegas area. Hopefully, wherever you found this audio program, you will find the episode description wherein we will, or you will find a summary in the show notes and my name, host, a summary which I will read to you and a few links. We have the two shameless self-promotion links as always, and then a few links, topical links about Greater Vegas, but not about the entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem, which is the main focus of Cafe Genius. I'm not reporting on things today. I did a fun economy, spelled F1 on economy. I did a multi-part set of episodes last year around the Formula One race, for example. I have specific comments now and then. Here I have links. I will mention them. They are interesting in a different context, which I will get into. So let us begin with the, again, hopefully wherever you found this audio program, episode description at your fingertips. The summary: another loop of racing fast approaches, and Nevada, already not ranking high with regard to education, is having some issues. And casino winnings took a dip, believe it or not. This is not what today's episode is about, but what today's episode is about. But these are things to consider when pondering opportunity in Greater Vegas. Today's links include, as I mentioned, the shameless self-promotion to be found at buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo, ko-fi.com/DanHugo, ko-fi.com/DanHugo. You do not need to spend any money. You can. Any funds that find their way to either of these sites will go towards actual coffee, whether it's beans or production of brewed, delicious coffee. That means like accessories. I don't really use filters. I go the sustainable route. Some people will argue that's blasphemous in some way, but I do try to use more stainless steel filters, etc. I do use paper filters for some things, like a drip style. You can use paper filters sometimes for pour over. I usually don't, but for my AeroPress, for example, stainless steel. Anyway, buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo has basically a profile page where I can place links to my various programs. Ko-fi.com, I really hope I can be announcing some website stuff. So Ko-fi.com, better for an announcement style thing. Either way, that's where I promote my various projects that are on sites that I don't have to manage. Basically, I don't have to deal with them. I have too many other things. I think I've mentioned that before. And now a few local topical links. One, the winnings of our casinos are down. This was for July and August. Down a little bit. So not as many gazillion dollars taken from, donated by gamblers. It was baccarat and slots apparently put a dent. Is it people playing less or winning more? If you're not optimal betting, playing craps, you're probably giving the casino undue advantage and more of your money. So it's curious that baccarat and slots are apparently putting a dent in how much our casinos win here. And those casino winnings are important because those pockets don't fill themselves. Lawsuit number 3, by the way, that was an 8 News Now local news report. Lawsuit number 3, according to Fox 5 Vegas, our Fox affiliate, filed only 2 days ago. There's another lawsuit for facing, or the being faced by, I guess, basically small businesses and frankly everyone, but a few rich few who got a little bit richer kind of got the short end across the board. It depends on exactly when, but essentially construction prior, very poor planning for how employees would get to work if they worked on the strip, the impact on employee work days and the general just moving around the city, the impact on public transit, on commuters that were otherwise uninvolved with Formula One but had to deal with it anyway. The construction beforehand, the impact on tourism because certain things like the Bellagio trees, which are being removed once again this year, the Bellagio trees, I was almost going to say the Venusian. That's a different planet. The Venetian had to shut down their water ride, the gondola, so that I think it was seating. They had to basically cover up the water that's in front of the Venetian. And there were other things, footbridges and other traffic impacts, and this had a substantial impact for people visiting as tourists, but also even more so for small businesses that were operating in the blast radius who lost money, in some cases a lot of money. And generally speaking, it was not the big win that you might have read about in headlines for everyone. That is the nature of life. Not everybody wins, but sometimes when you quite literally ignore some of the people that will be impacted and you are, say, Clark County, you are kind of asking for trouble. So lawsuit number 3. And again, I'm not necessarily I'm mentioning these things and I'm pointing you to where to read about them. There's a reason I'm actually mentioning these. I will get to it. There's apparently now some idea about shutting down small businesses on the part of the business owners, not some draconian government entity, but businesses are individually considering shutting down, closing during the Formula One race to avoid losing money. Because if you're operating and nobody's able to even get to your business, you might as well just shut the door. And of course, this has no impact on employees who are hoping to get their paycheck. So yeah, nobody loses on this notion. Formula One, it's what's for breakfast. So you can read about that on fox5vegas.com. Nevada education system failure, systemic failure. Again on 8 News Now, a report about some lawsuits filed against the Clark County School District and the Nevada Department of Education, so county and state, about systemic failures. Probably the big one that's made news lately is the budget crisis. But generally speaking, when you think, hey, that's a well-run educational organization, Nevada's not even in the building. So not totally surprised. We'll see what comes of that. And the school budget crisis has led to, so far, at least one teacher leaving one school is making headlines, but that is the tip of that iceberg. The schools are discovering what their budget shortfalls will be and how many teachers they can afford to keep. So, our local media doesn't really know what to do with stories like this. So, oh, you're leaving? Okay, let's cover that. The bigger picture will become clear as it resolves. And that's a ktnv.com news report. You can check out these links, of course, in the episode description, wherever you found this episode. So hopefully you will do that. But this is not a news report as we dive into this week's episode. This is not a news report. The intent with today's collection of links is not to be overly critical of the greater Vegas area. I do that all the time, so today's nothing special. No, really, these are pixels in a big picture, and I am not doing any form of quote-unquote reporting on these topics. We can leave that to the media. The local media does cover stuff like that, especially if it's crisis. If it's bad news, that gets on the home pages of these news outlets. But that is part of the point, actually. The things to think about here are these. Gambling is a state economy component, to be sure. The Formula One race event is a Clark County and LVCVA, that's the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority, economic impact event. They did it to make a positive economic impact, and for some, that is true. For other people, they just have to file some lawsuits and everything will be fine. And of course, education is a state problem and a Clark County problem, the Clark County School District, which will impact the economy and more into the future. The other thing to think about, our local media outlets will tend to cover these with varying degrees of intensity and will give topics such as these their due, mixed in with various crimes and ongoing drama with the mysterious Las Vegas athletics and the impending implosion of the Tropicana, and then of course traffic and other, they're imploding the Tropicana to make way for the arrival of the used to be the Oakland A's. They just recently had their final game in Oakland at the Oakland Coliseum, which was going to be the UMax Coliseum. I used to work at UMax, so I've been making comments about the trustworthiness of the A's / athletics based on that experience. It's not called the UMax Coliseum. So that's a different story, which I think I've told. So the ongoing drama gets some attention. Although the Las Vegas athletics situation gets more coverage outside of local media, like sports media, general sports media, and so on. The local media does cover implosions. Those are very exciting. So if you're going to tear down a resort, especially the Tropicana, which is a nice legacy member of the Strip, that's going to get some press. But it's very difficult to find ongoing, decent coverage of these impactful events and developments over time. They'll get a spot. But really, if you want to get coverage, you got to murder someone, because then you're in the news every day. I am not advocating murdering anyone. I'm pointing out how dismal our local media is. It has to be crime or something really awful, so it gets continuing. Like, oh, today's the trial, today's the indictment, today's the evidentiary here. These are how you get multiple mentions. Top-down oversight is busy and may not be anything but for the foreseeable future. That is to say, the people or entities responsible for top-down oversight are busy. There are smaller orgs and smaller challenges, of course. All towns and cities have their own issues to tackle. But do we wait for top-down direction? Do we pause until ideas fall from the sky, top-down? If we are entrepreneurs, if we are the least bit innovative, the answer is, of course, no. I use the terms top-down and bottom-up frequently, as I will today. Top-down versus bottom-up. Quick rundown. I have spoken about this before. Hey, I just said that. And it is something we focus on with the Innovate for Vegas Foundation, for example, which I am the managing director of. So much so that we are developing some tools to enable discovery of those pursuing bottom-up innovation, those people, cohorts, those pursuing bottom-up innovation, so that they might connect, communicate, and collaborate. If you don't know about each other, if you are in silos, which is the case in the greater Vegas area, very siloed, difficult to communicate, discover, etc. So we're building tools for the universe. We're not focused on Vegas. I know, Innovate for Vegas, but there are other people on the planet we can work with. So how do you discover that people are working on similar things? Because community elevation is not happening only in one place. Everybody has a unique take, but probably a unique take on a similar issue. Now, Southern Nevada doesn't have to worry about plumbing, pipe freezing, and so on, whereas a cohort of creative civic volunteers in the Minnesota area might be tackling that through some sort of a mysterious application. But the fact is, like 80% of things that anyone would like to see fixed, like better communication about ongoing repair issues of potholes and whatnot, a lot of these things are happening everywhere. So if you're working on a solution and someone else is working on a solution, you should be able to find each other and at least talk about it. And that's the nature of open source anyway. But for the sort of chaos going on, and in a good way, there's a lot of stuff going on. It's hard to figure out who's doing what. In December, the Code for America Labs was the business of that is the 501c3 of that organization. Code for America Labs shut down their brigade program, which was enabling civic volunteer cohorts to volunteer their time to elevate communities with technology. So when that's gone and the tools to communicate were never really well implemented anyway, so we're working on that. So I'll step off my plugging our project soapbox for now. If we don't know if others are doing something similar, we don't always know where to look. So this is a way to opt into a discovery graph. Now, a discovery graph is often used by people that are not mathematicians. I'm not a mathematician either, but I pretend to know the maths folks. A graph is the notion that nodes, so like dots or circles, nodes are connected by edges. Those are the lines. They can be directed, like there can be arrows pointing from one node to another. They can go in both directions. They can be three-dimensional, multi-dimensional. So a graph is how things are connected to each other, like a network graph. So when I say discovery graph, I don't mean like a bar chart. In fact, chart is the word you are usually thinking of, but not using. If you're thinking about a bar chart, a line chart, a pie chart, right? It's in the name of something, pie chart, bar chart. Those are charts. Top-down organizations, formal or informal, rely on direction from a hierarchy that may or may not have the interests of the lower parts of the hierarchy in mind. This is arguably something to think about regarding the Formula One situation, for example, which appears to have designed itself to move benefit up, make sure the profit goes to the big players. I was going to say the big boys, but the big players. Don't know if which way they would identify. So the lawsuits and other details will be interesting as time passes. We shall see what we discover, and I really, literally discover about some of the flow of money, some of the influence that was exerted or maybe peddled, who made out how well and who really did not make out so well. And again, there's 3 lawsuits about this. So when a top-down project like, hey, let's bring Formula One to Vegas, it'll be great for everybody. That's not always the case because top-down is really not looking down as often. Don't even start on trickle-down either. Bottom-up tends to be less strictly organized, more individuals and cohorts or groups of people who would like to focus on something they can all get behind. So it's not never, not always, but usually it's just people who have a proactive interest, and so they maybe have a loose structure. They kind of get together every once in a while, or they take on, hey, I'll do that. Recently in the east part of the Greater Vegas area, I think just beyond the city limits of North Las Vegas, if I'm remembering correctly, people in a neighborhood got tired of waiting, and so they started just filling in potholes themselves. And it turns out that is not rocket science. Like if you want to fill in a pothole, I'm not saying you're authorized to do so by your local government agencies and whatnot, but filling in a pothole is not an impossible task. And so they took it upon themselves to do that. This is what I'm talking about, bottom up. You're not waiting around. You're not being told what to do and when it's going to happen and so on from on high. You solve problems. And this is fairly entrepreneurial. When I talk to people about entrepreneurialism, there's always this notion that, well, of course you have to get your tech people and you're going to build an app or something. No. Entrepreneurial means that one idea is that an entrepreneur is someone with an idea and no money, but at the same time, you have an idea and you would like to pursue it. And so you figure out a way to do that. And it could be some mobile application. It could be starting a restaurant. It could be starting a food truck. It could be opening a bookstore. It could be any number of things. If you have to wait for someone else to do that, case in point here in Southern Nevada, for another example, the Southern Nevada Health District, the health department must inspect your restaurant before you open, right? There are various steps involved in opening a new food establishment anywhere, so that's not surprising. But they will sometimes take 6+ months to do it. And it's not always clear that there's some sort of a violation that needs to be fixed. Yeah, it's concerning. There was an ice cream shop very near me, and I watched it be closed for about a year. It hadn't opened yet, so it appeared from all appearances ready to go. And every once in a while they would announce, because they had other locations in the Greater Vegas area, so I guess that's good. It's company owned, so I think they have 3 locations. Apparently it's quite good. I've never been. They waited about a year. And they say, "Oh, we're getting close. We're getting close." Waiting on the health department. So even if you are entrepreneurial, sometimes a top-down roadblock will fall into place, and you have to wait on bureaucracy. The scope of the challenge may be tiny or maybe quite large, but the motivation and insight are driven by individual and group interest. Could be a pothole, could be there are other things people complain about here and around the area where I am that seem a little odd, but they take an interest, so that's good. So they're expressing an interest where it counts. They may take action, hopefully in some positive way, and they're closer to the challenge, whatever it is. So they're far away from that top of the hierarchy. The hierarchy people, the people that are at the top, doling out attention, like, oh, we're not going to pay attention to you this year, maybe next year. They're very far away, typically, from the challenge, the gap, the pothole. So bottom up for some things really makes a lot of sense. So what about opportunity in Greater Vegas? It would be a substantial mistake to believe in either of these two things. One, that there is something magic about the notion that Greater Vegas will be the next Silicon Valley. All we need to do is sprinkle some cash over the top, like sprinkles on ice cream, and bring in tons and tons of talent. Like import your employees and let's bring in some people from California. Let's bring Silicon Valley to the new Silicon Valley. What is a little gentrification after all, right? Or a lot. The other thing that would be a mistake to believe is that Las Vegas is only the fun economy and that there is no reason to consider innovation here. So those are both wrong. Unfortunately, the first one gets a lot of hype, and the second one is probably what some people think. And I'm not going to argue that, because the Greater Vegas area is not an ideal spot. It is not the next Silicon Valley. So anyone doing anything should not immediately think, we should probably do this in Las Vegas. There's a time and a place. Sometimes the place is Vegas. Sometimes the time is in 10 years. Sometimes it's now. I have mentioned this several times previously that the Greater Vegas area is an innovation destination. It's a real contender, in fact. The fun economy includes some innovation highlighting trade shows and conventions which bring innovators here. Why not bring your remote workers together in a place that is built to accommodate visitors? Hey, Vegas has like 150,000 hotel rooms, give or take. They're tearing down the Trop. They're building other things. I think it was around 155,000 a year ago or so. Who knows? 150,000. We have a place for you to stay. It might be very expensive depending on when, but you can come. Bring the family. There's actually fun stuff to do if your family comes with you, as long as you don't stay here for too long, because you'll run out of fun things to do that are family friendly. So why not bring your remote workers together in this place that is built for such things? While you're at it, you might encounter some interesting people at a related convention, maybe engage dozens or hundreds of your potential or existing or future customers who also are visiting Vegas. And this is something I've brought up several times. I brought it up with the Las Vegas Global Economic Alliance. Unfortunately, they didn't do anything about it. That's why, unfortunately, I said, hey, you have so much entrepreneurialism in the downtown project that never gets any attention. This is a theme that continues today, the downtown project or not. They really don't get much attention. It seems like there should be a proactive way, maybe an effort to connect this entrepreneurial effort to the tourism so that people visiting Vegas can see or hear or touch or they can interact with and become familiar with the startup scene. And they said, that is a great idea. We are not going to do anything about that. My screensaver just came on, so I had to unlock my screen there, hence the typing. So I've been talking about this for 11 years. Part of the value proposition of the Greater Vegas area for anything novel, anything entrepreneurial, anything innovative, hopefully both, really should include the notion that 40 million people, give or take, but the run rate is 40 million this year. It was about 40 million last year. So basically 40 million people, 40 million, 40 million, visit the Greater Vegas area through the year for the fun economy. Trade shows, entertainment, tourism, gaming. I'm sorry, entertainment and tourism are the same thing. Let's start over. They're here for let's say gaming is the first one. Everybody's here for gaming, gambling. You're here for professional sports. We're only getting more of those. You're here for some sort of entertainment or tourism. So you're visiting the area. You're going to see a show and whatnot. You are here for trade shows. Wait, I said entertainment. I know this list. The fifth one is tourism. So entertainment. So let's do this one last time. Gaming, professional sports, trade shows. I'm changing the order. Entertainment, tourism. Okay, fun economy. So the trade shows are important, but basically people who are visiting Vegas, especially if they bring family, because this is not a completely family unfriendly place. It used to be back in the day, but there's plenty to do on and off the strip for young people. There could be more, but if you're not 21, you can still do some stuff. And if you're here with the family, great. Have a good time. Pinball museum, for example. Why not bring your remote workers together in a place that is built to accommodate visitors? And while you're at it, you might consider talking to those 40 million. They could be for the convention. You might go to the convention. You might go to CES or the construction show or whatever industry, and the pizza show, if you build pizza apps or pizza ovens or pizza robots, whatever you're doing. You can engage dozens or hundreds of your customers who are also visiting Vegas. They could be walking on the street. They could be downtown. I have seen in a very limited edition of this for some reason, I have seen a booth set up on Fremont, the Fremont Street Experience. So under the Viva Vision canopy, it was very near the D, if you're curious, in a center area, a booth with black curtain surrounds. And you can go and interact with, I know there was at least one, it may have been 2 or 3 little companies that were here in Vegas to have people try out their products. The one that I knew the person, they were making some noise canceling headphones. They had some mock-ups and we could try on the headphones and give our opinions. So look at that. You get a nice cross section. You don't get access to all 40 million people on one day on Fremont, but you get a variety of people. And Fremont really tends to be more locals, but without the caveats, you get access to a bunch of people who have a few minutes, and enough of these people are willing to do a timeshare presentation that usually ends badly. So if you can take a minute or 10 minutes of their time and show them some cool thing, and they get some little token of appreciation when they're done, a drink coupon or something, who knows, which they did in this case as well, then you have access to 40 million people coming to town that you can sort of like when the wind is blowing, you can stick your finger into the wind and you get some of the wind, right? It's done. Yes, it takes some effort, but if you're going to try to do something novel here in the greater Vegas area, one of the benefits is that you have a huge cross-section of a population that passes through here every year. Fairly diverse. I think international travel has come back, at least mostly. So you have a diversity, not only domestic, but international, culturally, language, etc. So a whole bunch of opportunity to engage, encounter even people who may not know about your product, but would have something interesting to offer to you. Basing your efforts in Vegas can make sense. Can be something of a challenge, but it can make sense. I still recommend against relocating a startup to the greater Vegas area if this means moving employees and worse, their families, for the sake of proximity. If you are leaning in heavily to the fun economy, food and beverage, or anything where engagement with a diverse population is a focus area of your endeavor, then yes, by all means, this is an interesting place. But if you're going to, now, do you have to move your company here to do that? Again, food, beverage, sure. You want to open a restaurant? Yeah, you pretty much have to be here. But if you're focusing on something that fits in with the fun economy, consider whether, actually having people pick up and move. Do they have kids in school? Well, be ready. Be ready for private school. But it is something to think about whether there is a value proposition for relocating a company to Vegas versus having an office in Vegas. Have an office in Vegas with a couple of people who can run what is essentially a focus group or co-creation efforts, or take advantage of some of the aspects of the greater Vegas area that makes sense. But having a family or a group of families move here for the sake of being near a team at a startup, that gets a hard no from me. I'm just being honest. A couple of ideas throw around some of those chaos potentials. Clearly, education in an area that needs help across the state. That's something that you could, if you're already doing something in education, this is a place to try it out. Washoe County, where Reno and Carson City are located, has some efforts underway, some NGO and school district stuff. But down here in Clark County, I have my doubts based on my interactions in the last 11 years. Chaos is indeed opportunity, though. And if there is some entrepreneurialism driving an effort such that relying on school funding is not an issue, because, see those links above about substantial budget problems, then you may have something here. Still, Southern Nevada would be an interesting place to try out some ideas if they understand what you propose. There is, one of the considerations, you can't just walk into a school and start working with students. Although I have found in my travels, this is anecdotal, the parent-school interface in the Clark County area could use some work. That's all I'll say about that for the moment. Anything having to do with water and water conservation, and now I am seeing atmospheric water recovery coming on the scene. Think moisture farming from Star Wars. So Luke Skywalker and his aunt and uncle's moisture farm could be making an appearance, probably on the Strip. This may extend to any resource access, since humans pretty much rely on access to essential resources like food and water every day, and a desert such as this one has its challenges, especially when we're having hotter summers that last longer. It's September 27th, and it's still up. Now it's showing 98 degrees. 3 o'clock in the afternoon or so is the high. So we'll see what it gets up to. I will not be talking to you at that point, but excessive heat warming is on the table. So humans need this stuff. There is even some alarming news coming out now that heat deaths are occurring more frequently. And I just mentioned the record high temperatures this summer. We did hit, I think it was 120 degrees Fahrenheit. That is not, I have mentioned this before. I lived in Phoenix when they hit 122 degrees at the airport. Those are hot. That's hot days. Phoenix tends to have more hotter days like that, but it's something that we should actually be thinking about. I believe I didn't want to talk about too much of this bad stuff, but there was an increased number of possibly heat-related fatalities. So they're still doing some investigations, and we don't have to get into the details of how they're doing that, but you got to find out why someone passed away. There is an attribution to drug use, whatever kinds of drugs, but they increase vulnerability to high temperatures. They slow the body's reaction, become more susceptible to the effects of heat and so on. But I would wonder about the homeless population in the greater Vegas area. They are often left outside. The Clark County Heat Center, Hot Weather Center, I think, Hot Weather Cooling Center, something. They have at least one facility where you can go and get some water when these things happen. Even that's probably something that could use a little bit of entrepreneurialism sprinkled on top. But we have extreme heat advisories for today, September 27th, this late in our summer. Traffic, road construction, and impact of these is a non-trivial thing here in the greater Vegas area. There's a meme, I guess it is, that the state bird or the county bird, I guess, or the county thing of some sort is an orange traffic cone. This extends all the way out to the border, with so many people relying on a rather narrow strip of interstate to get to and from Barstow and elsewhere in California. So when you're coming to Vegas, you got to worry that one wrong move and the entire freeway can be, or the entire highway. Is it freeway? Yeah, I guess technically the interstate can be taken out. I think it was a week ago. There was a lithium battery carrying truck transporter, 18-wheeler, big rig. So remember those Samsung phones that would explode? Yeah, imagine a giant truck full of batteries that once exposed to air, lithium is not a good thing to be around. So the whole truck was on fire. And whatever else happened, the road was closed. So you're pretty much at the mercy of natural disaster, a series of events that are beyond your control, and you may be sitting on that freeway forever. And by the way, they don't really talk about this too often, but when you're stuck on that freeway, I guess you can try to go to, I can't remember the name of the sort of the last stop when you're leaving. Gosh, I should try to remember this. Let me look this up so I can say it. I stopped there for gas one time. I haven't done a road trip to California in many years. Last city in Nevada before California. Primm. How could I forget that? Primm. 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 Primm, Nevada. You could stop there. You can get some gas. But if you're not near Primm, presumably there would be a place to get water. Because again, this accident was only, or this situation was only 2 weeks ago or so. So we're in the heat of the summer. You're stuck on the freeway. You're not going anywhere. It's not really clear to me whether there are resources and plans in place to get people food and water, maybe not in that order, in that circumstance. So interesting. So travel with your supplies as though you are in a covered wagon traversing the country in the good old days. So yeah, the narrow freeway, the Formula One impact on local small business due to construction, traffic diversion, and other issues is non-trivial. So the ability to move around, including moving to and from California, which is why I'm totally spacing on the name. What's it called? It starts with a B. The Brightline. Jeez, I was like Broadline. No, Brightline. Brightline West will be running for the tickets will be hundreds of dollars. It will open in just over 2 years, sometime in 2027. So yeah, they're putting that train in specifically to bring wallets full of money and the people that are wearing them from Southern California to Nevada. So get rid of that street, the pavement. So you'll be on a nice air-conditioned train, presumably for hundreds of dollars. Traffic is a problem. Traffic is a problem here in Southern Nevada, and it doesn't appear to be getting any better, and it impacts everything. The data is likely there, plenty of opportunity to analyze it, perhaps propose solutions that don't put family businesses out of business, for example. Traffic routing, public transit routing, traffic planning, it just appears to be, maybe it's craps-based. I don't know. But it's just a meme now. Like I said, the traffic cone thing, a truck overturning on a freeway, somebody getting shot on a freeway, something normal like a multiple car accident, person on the freeway. The freeway, there aren't too many freeways here. This is not Los Angeles after all. The freeway being a major thoroughfare for getting to and fro is critical, and when it fails, traffic has to go somewhere, and then you can see a cascading problem when construction has blocked off some of the other arteries. So basically education, resources, especially water, and traffic are just 3 examples of things where there are people working on things here. I'm not saying that it's a wasteland, but a lot of opportunity. Some other things to think about. There is an alleged startup scene here. I say alleged because it is vanishingly small, and lacks direction. It is trying to be bottom up, but it is ultimately top down. But it's at small scale. So the top is not a county or state resource or some NGO or public-private entity. It's really just people who are trying to do things and trying and not necessarily succeeding in a great way. But if you do something that gets attention and is sustainable, like it happens every week or every month, then you're a rock star, you're a celebrity. So there's this notion that somebody will do something. I have said this before, the entrepreneurial scene, the ecosystem here in Southern Nevada appears to be made mostly of people waiting for someone else to fix their problems. That sounds mean, but I gave actual examples at the time. Essentially, people who are entrepreneurial here are looking to the likes of Startup NV or Startup.Vegas, which is now merged with Startup NV. So things are going well when there are fewer entities like this to enable and encourage an entrepreneurial ecosystem, if that's even what they were doing. The number of people that are waiting, though, is large by comparison to the number of entrepreneurs who are really trying to be entrepreneurial. That's my opinion. I've observed it. It's anecdotal. So we're ultimately top down and at a small scale because most people are waiting for someone else to do something. And then if someone else does something, they are revered. I heard this best said in a video stream recently from one of the members of this so-called community. And I do not like the word community. It's thrown around too easily, too almost dismissively, that nobody knows about this scene. This was something mentioned in the video. The person said this. Nobody knows about us, so that's why we do this live stream. So this is an event that's been happening for years in a place that thinks it's going to be the next Silicon Valley, but nobody knows. This production is seen by as many as 50 people on a regular basis. I mean, it's regularly something 50 or under. Am I mocking this person? No. I don't know what my traffic is for this audio program or my various others. May not be that high, maybe millions. Probably not. So I'm not judging I'm not judging the production on the viewer numbers. I am judging the notion that doing something such as that without it being a part of some general effort to communicate with the population at large, whether it's the 2.3 million people who live in Clark County or the 40 million who visit, if you're not doing anything to reach out to them, then you're creating this production for the same 50 people. And the startup scene, in quotes, is, I would estimate, something like 300 people who really would identify themselves as a member of the startup scene in Greater Vegas. To be honest, real entrepreneurs don't have time for such things. I've spoken to that ilk as well, and I would consider myself one of those types of people. So yeah, I don't have time to mess around. I don't have the energy. I don't have the general resources, mental, extra brain cells. Now, I don't want to spend my creativity and ingenuity and time and effort and blood, sweat, and tears, if you like, on a community of so-called entrepreneurs that is just waiting for someone else to do things. You know, hey, this is a problem. Somebody should fix it. But you're an entrepreneur. Well, I don't have time. You have time to complain, but as the saying goes, do not curse the darkness, light a candle. Enable someone to do something, do 10% at least to try to connect a solution to the problem. I didn't finish this point. So 50 people, social media in Greater Vegas, and this is provable, is focused on fun economy. Local media is focused on fun economy and crime. Local business media is focused on real estate and big money opportunities. Very little useful small, medium-sized business and startup focus, despite the hype. So we're going to be the next Silicon Valley. Just don't tell anyone. Discovery of various efforts, sometimes similar or aligned in some way, could be made easier. You may recall I just mentioned our efforts to enable discovery of volunteers and volunteer projects focused on community elevation, basically to take the place of the now shut down Brigade program from Code for America, to encourage connection, communication, and collaboration. By the way, I don't want to toot my own horn too much, but the Brigade program went away, and the replacement effort is essentially a recreation of the same model that has gone away. So that has a roadmap already built in. This isn't working. Well, let's try the same exact thing again. By the way, there's a software developer joke when a car was going down a hill and it was full of hardware engineers, and the brakes failed and the car had to make an kind of swervy, whatever. They all came to a stop safely. Then the engineers get out and they're trying to figure out what happened with what's going on with the brakes? Let's look at the brake lines. Let's look at the cylinder, the master cylinder. Let's look at the pedal. Is it electrical? They investigate the problem. Software engineers, car full of software engineers going down a hill, brakes give out. They come to a safe stop and they say, well, let's run the car back up to the top of the hill and try it again. See if we can reproduce the problem. That's all I'm going to say about the next effort. So we're literally trying to replace or succeed a top-down effort with a bottom-up effort to make this discovery process more viable, to enable and encourage connection, communication, and collaboration. So this is what I'm talking about. You have to be willing to roll your sleeves up. That's entrepreneurialism. That is what it is. So something like something like this discovery might work. So we're thinking not geographically proximal, but something like this might also work in a geographical locality like a town or a city or even a community where people busy trying to drive a business to success, for example, do not have time to know how best to team up to address issues of various kinds. I don't know what I don't know. I do know there's a problem. I have a little bit of time. How can we take that little bit of time and make use of it? Right? Like Formula One impact on small businesses, for example, that really got attention because one person, one business owner who lost, I think it was like $2.5 million, got the attention of a local reporter, got on TV for a couple of minutes, made a case, went to the Clark County Commission meeting, said something. I don't know which order that took place in, but essentially you got to make some noise and you got to get some attention, and then you got to get a coalition together of people who are like, yeah, that's a problem. The power of many voices. So that has to, these things sort of need to happen. The voice of one is very, very easily unheard. The GOED, the Governor's Office of Economic Development, and nonprofit resources like Startup NV, which is a statewide organization, as the name implies, not to mention public-private entity like LVGEA, and they drive some macroeconomic decision-making for Southern Nevada. So they're kind of like, the UNLV has the Office of Economic Development, so that's a university resource. Their counterpart in the public-private sector is LVGEA. They're arguably more influential in the planning of the economy and its ultimate downfall, are not necessarily listening to the quiet voices. If you're one person with a problem, those people are not really interested, nor looking at the smaller numbers. They're not really interested in your, $2 million. How many billions of dollars are you going to bring to our economy? How many jobs are you going to create? You need to create 50 jobs, 100 jobs. If you're creating 2 or 3, meh, which is unfortunate, of course. By the way, 80%, or it was either 80 or 82% of, I haven't done this calculation in a while, but I looked up the numbers. I think it's for Nevada. It's like 82% of small businesses have no employees. They're single consultants, individuals, no employees. There are some questions floating around about ethics, effectiveness, and where interests are focused for these entities, especially Startup NV and LVGEA. In one case, one role at LVGEA, there may be a little conflict with the Startup NV scheme. Allegedly, these are top-down entities. Their track records for the startup scene they hope to build in Southern Nevada is arguably not great. Merely having exits is some weird brag, but that breaks everything down to just a number. That's not success. That's a number. Listen to what they have to say, but listen closely and due diligence, DUE. See due diligence. See what I did there? Due diligence. Because from what I've seen, they need help, and you may not benefit from their help because they need help. So what they tell you may or may not be useful to you. I've heard wildly mixed reviews, different opinions based on actual interactions by real entrepreneurs trying to work in this space. And there's some head shaking and some concern. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. I'm still here. I have my entrepreneurial endeavors unfolding. I'm one of the 82%. Personally, I think a bottom-up approach to cultivating the ecosystem from which a startup community, in quotes, or startup scene, also in quotes, with any sort of viability might emerge. And the startup scene as it is today in the greater Vegas area is not unviable, but I think it has more people in it as spectators. So maybe it needs, if you refer to it as a farm, if you're cultivating that farm, we may need to turn the soil or do a crop rotation. But if we're going to have any sort of viable of any of these quote words, community scene, we need to go bottom up, and it will hopefully work better. So don't rely on other people to do things. Rely on other people to collaborate to do things. That is, I'm going to do a thing to make the scene better. Who wants to join in? Well, why don't you do that and I'll come by later. Oh, that's right. We're in Vegas. So if there's a bottom-up approach to solving real problems or addressing real needs or gaps or bridging communication lines, seeing that people collaborate, trying to get disparate groups together that like, you're doing the same things. Why are you doing it without knowing about each other? This should all sound familiar based on what I was saying earlier. This is how startups work anyway. Hey, I have a startup idea. Does anybody want to work on it? Do you want to be my co-founder? Do you want to be an early stage first employee, etc.? You get one or two other people together, you transform an idea into some action and then maybe into a thing that you can show other people and then hire more people and get funding and so on. You don't have an idea and sit and wait for someone else to do it, do you? Waiting for some entities to declare startup scenes like, hey, look, we have a startup scene. And then consuming the hype and the mismanagement, not great ideas. And again, I don't know if I said this clearly, I implied it, and I've talked about this before. The reason I went through some of those top-down notions in the news, in the links to the news articles or reports, is that top-down entities having control of certain aspects of the greater Vegas area are not always great for the people that are not close to the top. So if you're going to hope for an entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem, which is one of the main focus areas of the Cafe Genius entity, Cafe Genius, I've talked about the history of that name before, so we'll do that another time. You really have to take the ball and run with it here in Greater Vegas. If you're waiting for someone else to solve problems, they may have no idea or they may have no interest. What's in it for me? Solipsism reigns. There are all manner of other statements I've made over the last year or so to this effect. Yeah, you can't just say, hey, we're a startup scene. Hey, we're Hollywood 2.0. Yeah, the devil's in the details, as they say. Cafe Genius had the Genius Roundtable, and we did try to get the Startup Resource Center moving. The Genius Roundtable was actually my idea, although it's not a new idea. Making it happen here was my idea. It was finding entrepreneurs who could sit at a table once a month and examine our ecosystem, its state of affairs, what's working, what isn't, what can we do about it. That sounds a lot like the motivation for the entire FFS Talk audio program I do published on Thursdays. And we did try the Startup Resource Center, like I said, which was intended to be the gateway to startups and entrepreneurial endeavors, people that have come to Vegas thinking, hey, they told me to move to Vegas and become a local and start my business. Now what? Because usually you get a shoulder shrug and a good luck and a go to Blackfire. Go to the SBDC or go talk to SCORE, go to Tech Alley. Like, these are not helpful. And this is anecdotally, I've been told. I've learned from asking. Didn't really get much help there. So the Startup Resource Center was intended to be the beginning of the first mile, not the last mile. The first mile of a startup journey in the Greater Vegas area. Lots and lots of interest until it came time to do something. And then the people in the city of Las Vegas, for example, suddenly didn't answer their phones. Interesting. So neither was a factor because, my view, there is too much interest in shiny objects, in the action and pronouncements of other people who talk a good game but not on their delivery. So a lot of excitement when Mark Andreessen announced he was going to have a house in the Greater Vegas area somewhere. Mark Andreessen of Netscape and Andreessen Horowitz fame. He doesn't live here. But they were profoundly excited. And they used to tell, oh, did you hear Mark Andreessen is moving here? That is what they care about, because it's almost like hitting the jackpot. Who doesn't love hearing the ding, 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 ding when your money is falling out into the tray, which doesn't happen anymore, but they still make the noise. This is unfortunate, but fail fast is a real thing and worth thinking about for your own ventures, which is why the Genius Roundtable may or may not happen again, and why the Startup Resource Center, dead. I doubt anything like it will ever happen, despite the fact that one-stop shops for these things are or have been implemented or do exist in other places that are trying to foment entrepreneurialism. So not even a new idea, just not one that will fit in here. Gotta work with the fun economy. Today, some of the things I've talked about are on the table for 2 startup ideas we are pursuing, which I've talked about before. But I can't type apparently. But as was the topic last week, the topic of last week's show of Cafe Genius Impresarios, the title indeed was Chaos is Opportunity. And here in Greater Vegas, there is plenty of opportunity. Roll credits. So there you go. Don't forget to check out buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo, Ko-fi.com, ko-fi.com/DanHugo. Find out about those other audio programs, FFS Talk, like I mentioned, what works, what doesn't, what can we do about it. This audio program is focused on cultivating, developing, somehow making work our entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem. And then, of course, Let's Innovate for Vegas, about our nonprofit, and Quaggling Sand, which is my personal vanity project, stories, events gone by, maybe some learnings. So that's 4 audio programs each week, not to mention various other projects. You can learn about some of those at buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo. And that is where I will leave today's episode. It's 99 degrees by the little widget. I don't know. I think the widget's probably due an airport. But in my neighborhood, it should be right around 100 at this point. That is all I have to say about that. Thank you for listening, as always.